Hey everybody, how's it going? I hope you're having a lovely day. So apparently farmers have gotten the ability to fix their own tractors. It doesn't seem like the farmers I know have gotten this news, but the news is telling them they can, so it must be true. Here it says from the BBC, US farmers win the right to repair John Deere equipment. From courts, John Deere agreed to allow farmers to fix their own tractors. CNN Business, Deere gives farmers long sought after ability to repair their own tractors. Engadget, John Deere will let US farmers repair their own equipment. Reuters, Linksys. Deere & Co. will allow farmers to repair their own equipment. KCCI Des Moines, right to repair agreement signed for John Deere products, and so on. And oh my God, what is this? Okay, some of these websites just kill me. And then you have John Deere finally grants farmers right to repair. But is it actually true? Did they get what they're looking for? It's really funny because I have not had a single farmer message me in the past few days saying, Lewis, we won. But I have had a lot of people saying, Lewis, the news said that you won, which is somewhat aggravating, I'll be honest with you. But let's dig into this and try and figure out if they won, what they won, and what they're getting. Over the past few weeks, a right to repair bill came out in New York State, and this got a lot of coverage as a good thing. But in reality, the bill was filled with a lot of poison pills that I discussed in these videos. Governor Hochul sabotages New York right to repair bill right on schedule. I discussed with the news why this was, and in typical New York fashion, right after they destroyed this bill that I've worked on for 7 years, they voted in their own $32,000 pay raise. Now, there's been a lot of talk in the news about a memorandum of understanding with John Deere and how this is going to make it easier for farmers to fix their tractors. So I decided to read into this a little bit before I jumped on the bandwagon of talking about how this was a great thing for farmers. And it seemed to read very similarly to what was done to the New York State right to repair bill. It talks about emissions, it talks about safety controls, intellectual property, and so on and so forth. And it has these little things in it that, again, I am not a farmer, but just leads me to believe that this is not going to give farmers what they want. I had an inkling when I read this that this was a BS memorandum of understanding, but I'm not able to tell you why it is from an authoritative point of view because I don't even know how to farm in Dota, much less real life. So I thought I would have somebody on who is an expert who can hopefully explain why this really does not get farmers anywhere closer to where they need to be, and why, in my opinion, it is an absolute travesty that this is being celebrated as a victory for farmers who are probably punching air and ripping their newspapers up as they read, "Farmers get big victory in right to repair." Without further ado, Jared Wilson. Can you talk a little bit about whether or not you think this is a good thing and why? So, like, again, for the average person that would watch my stuff, they go, wait, so they're just saying they won't make the part available if there's a safety issue. That doesn't seem like a big deal. But I realize that's a big deal because safety has been the reason for the past 7 years that they have not wanted to make a charge port available. How does this help you, or does it help you at all?
Yeah, no. So I guess first you have to look at how John Deere has responded to this in the past. They had a similar memorandum of understanding between a trade group that John Deere primarily controls, called the Far West Equipment Dealers Association. They signed a memorandum of understanding very similar to this in 2018 with the California Farm Bureau. And as of now, all of the requirements of that memorandum still haven't been met. John Deere has hid behind intellectual property, environmental controls, and safety standards to prevent allowing us to have the full diagnostic suite that we need to continue to work on this equipment. And the reality is that if they're allowed to hide even 2% of what they say are repairs that only they can make behind this smokescreen of intellectual property rights and emissions protections and control safety features, they can really continue their monopoly on repair. What we need as producers is all of the diagnostic capacity that dealership technicians have. And additionally, dealership technicians need all of those resources if they're going to go out and work on their own for a farmer or open their own small business. And this just seems like a blatant attempt by John Deere to continue to forestall meaningful conversation in state legislatures, to pass right to repair bills that they actually are, required to abide by, under the law. And so this memorandum, it doesn't accomplish anything. I really don't understand who negotiated it, or what experience they have actually working on agricultural equipment. And it's just a poison pill that prevents open conversation happening at the state level for things that actually could lead to meaningful change. And another really important component is that they just gave up on the argument to make parts available to third party channels, and they're still trying to funnel all part sales through the John Deere network. My Ford pickup, I can go to a number of auto parts stores in town and buy sensors and parts for it. And lo and behold, Ford Motor Company is still innovating every day and is still a competitive American enterprise. And that would be the same with John Deere, except their profitability might suffer from that, and they might not have the same monopolistic hold over the repair tools and parts that we have to make this stuff run.
Yeah, the point that you bring up that scares me the most is the idea that, well, look, we have a memorandum of understanding. You don't need this right to repair bill. The idea that if this headline gets out that John Deere gave farmers what they want, that legislators may say, okay, we don't really have to care about this anymore. We can focus on something else. That seems to be the worst possible thing that could happen. And that was what I was hoping would not happen with the New York right to repair bill, that people would say, well, Lewis got what he wanted, so we're done. So it's important for farmers and people that think like this to get out there and make sure that this is not seen as a win in the eye of the public, because so many people think this is a win. And just to give an example, you had said that based on how they have acted with prior memorandums of understanding, you can expect the same behavior from this because it's written in very, very similar way. Can you give just a basic example to somebody who has never been on a farm before as to what are the repairs that you would like to be able to do that you cannot do with the existing memorandums of understanding that are out there?
Yeah, gosh, by the time my combine's done, I'm going to have spent $70,000 on repairs at my local John Deere dealership in the past 2 months. And one of the things was on an 8345 front wheel assist tractor I have. It had a hydraulic electronic control unit code fault. And so we swapped out the controller for that particular hydraulic SCV, selective control valve. And then we had another code triggered. And so the physical valve block, the part that actually supplies hydraulic oil to the SCV, has a sensor built into the shuttle switch. Well, the dealership didn't know what that code meant, so they had to go through a program called DTAC, which is the Dealer Technical Assistance Center. And essentially, John Deere knows what the failure rates are on all of these parts. And so, knowing that, when they have an error code that is presented, they can identify, what part is most likely to have failed and advise dealerships on what to repair. They don't actually know; they're just going by what the data tells them. And without having access to DTAC, I couldn't have troubleshooted that, or without spending tens of thousands of dollars in additional parts I probably didn't need. And the dealership had no idea how to do that. That information came directly from John Deere. And one of my biggest concerns is that in using these intellectual property right arguments, they're going to deny us the ability to have that crucial diagnostic information. And I'm going to give you another example. Not only would I have been unable to have figured out what part I needed to replace, but if I knew what the failure rates on some of these parts are, I could stock more of those in inventory in my shop so that I have them available at crucial times whenever they fail. And by not making those failure rates public or allowing us to have access to that, they continue to hoard information that makes it impossible for an independent mechanic to know that when they take a machine apart in their shop, that they can put it back together and fix it, because without this information, there's just no cost effective way to go about troubleshooting and diagnosing these issues. And I also would like to echo your concerns about what type of effect this is going to have on state legislation coming out. I had a number of friends and colleagues email and message me congratulations yesterday upon reading the numerous news articles that suggested that this was a big win and that John Deere was providing everything that we need. And the fact is, they're not. And this is a public perception game that they're playing to try to arrest the actual, debate and conversation from happening at the state level to get something to change.
What would be an ideal outcome for you if you're not able to, at the very least, get the memorandum of understanding that you want or a bill passed immediately? Like, for an example, for me, my one ask was that this not be put in the press as a victory for us, even if I didn't get what I wanted from the company or from the legislature. At the very least, can we not have the public believe that we won? What asks would you have of like the audience here?
Yeah, I just really want people to recognize that there's a number of people who have been working, on this initiative throughout the country, and as such, there's a number of people who have some intimate knowledge about this system and processes and all of the complicated, copyright and intellectual property arguments that exist in this space. But there's a limited number of people who are actually working on this equipment and talking about this issue. And in the reporting that I've seen on this memorandum of understanding, I haven't seen anyone from repair.org or the Public Interest Research Group. No one who has been advocating for repair was quoted or asked anything by reporters about this memorandum of understanding. It's been very one-sided coverage, and when you start to dig into the details and actually know what you're looking at, you understand quickly that this is an initiative by John Deere to really arrest real change.
Yeah, that just kind of, I don't know, that makes me incredibly sad. Now, one of the things that I was talking about last year is you'll see these. There's this weird thing that happens where, like, I remember in Nebraska, all of the politicians that were endorsed by the Nebraska Farm Bureau voted against right to repair. All the politicians that were not voted for right to repair. In Maryland, when we were advocating for this, there was somebody from the Maryland Farm Bureau that said something along the lines of farmers and their independent mechanics have no interest in trying to fix their own tractors. That's not really what the issue is here. And I'm looking at a lot of the people that are supposed to be representing farmers, and they don't actually seem to be saying any of what I hear people like you or Kevin Kenny or the actual farmers. They're not really expressing their concerns. Where is that disconnect where the organizations and groups that are supposed to be supporting farmers' interests seem to be continuously voting against them, agreeing to memorandums of understanding that seem to have not consulted with people like you at all? Like, why is that happening?
I'm not a member of Farm Bureau, and I certainly don't think that I'll be joining its membership rolls after this. Uh, I don't know. It boils down to money, and it deals with the political discourse and capital. With other lobbying efforts. I really don't understand where the disconnect is. I've emailed Zippy Duvall, the president of the American Farm Bureau, to ask him, who actually wrote this memorandum. What experience did any of the people in the room have repairing farm equipment, and as such, how would they have the necessary knowledge to know what to put in this memorandum of understanding?
I am confident he has many emails from Kevin Kenny in his inbox right now. But yeah,
Yeah,
and
it's
everybody.
very clear that the people that have written this have absolutely no idea. The history of John Deere and making false promises regarding the repair tools that they're making available, and B, they don't know how to repair equipment. It's not something that they do. So I just don't where the disconnect is, man. But it's pretty clear that the people who are actually doing this work are not being heard by the people who actually pull the levers of power.
Okay, well, it's my genuine hope that with this discussion and more discussions like it, that more of the audience and more of the general public and population sees this for what it is, which is not a win, just a PR stunt designed to push off legislation so that the status quo can stay as is, and you can keep paying $70,000 rather than being able to fix your own stuff when there's a problem. Thank you very much for taking the time. Is there any question that I haven't asked? Is there anything that hasn't really been covered that you think should be covered before I end it?
No, I think it was spot on, and appreciate you having me and all the efforts that you've done to get us to be able to repair our own stuff, Lewis. Thanks a lot.
Anytime. Oh, one last thing before the ending of it. My guess, and this is something I don't really know about. I'm just speculating. I've always thought when people have said, "Why haven't I heard more about this?" If farmers are aggravated, my reason has always been, or what I've always speculated is, they are busy working in the field for like 12 or 16 hours a day. They don't really have time to like make YouTube videos, talk to reporters, visit their state and city legislatures and stuff like that. Well, do you think that farmers are going to have to start doing more of that? Or like, if these groups like the Farm Bureau are not, that they're paying dues to, or not actually advocating for them and are routinely endorsing politicians that actually vote against their own interests, do you think that farmers are going to have to look for some sort of different organization or start to organize themselves in some way in order to get the word out?
Yeah, I think so. There's just a couple things. The average age of the U.S. farmer, I think, is like 61, and this infusion of technology into what is, traditionally been a very, physically oriented occupation means that I think there's a lack of understanding and clarity about how to express, their indignation at the repair choices that we currently have available. And when you couple that with the fact that we're all just really busy and we actually have to physically take time out of our day and our manual labor to hop on calls and address this issue, it makes it really difficult to unify producers and present a united front about the problems surrounding this. And when you also look at the misinformation that has been propagated by John Deere to try to stop having honest conversation about this, it makes it confusing and really difficult to dig down and figure out what the problems are and how to address them. And so I certainly hope that we get some farmers that will speak up and talk about this. But the other part I'd like to add on the backside is that John Deere has a financial arm that a pretty high number of U.S. farmers are indebted to for either input supply or notes that they have on existing equipment. And I've been threatened by my local dealership that they wouldn't provide me parts and service because I was creating drama through my legislative efforts and attempts to get public discourse to occur over this. So there are all consequences, and I think people are concerned about it. And I agree with you. I think that farmers are going to have to step up and speak about this, with their own personal experiences as best they can, because that's the only way that we're going to be able to show state legislatures that, there's a critical mass here of people that need something to change.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time. I really do appreciate it. Have a great day.
Yeah. Thanks, Lewis. Bye.
I met him while I was in Washington earlier this year. He is a very well-spoken, very articulate, amazing person. So again, the one thing that I hope comes out of this, and the one thing that I think my audience can do for all of these farmers, is make sure the message that makes its way out there is not the message that farmers have won, because they have not won. There is nothing John Deere would like more than for the news media, for your average voter, for your average legislative person to believe that right to repair is a done deal because they already have this memorandum of understanding. Everything's solved. The farmers are happy. They are not happy, and this is not going to do a damn good bit of good for them. And the more news articles that get released saying that farmers have already gotten everything they wanted and they're all set, the worse off the farmers actually are. They haven't gotten what they're looking for. In my opinion, that should be what makes it into the news. The only thing worse than being pissed on is when everybody else thinks it's just raining. That's it for today. And as always, I hope you learned something. I'll see you all in the next video. Bye now.